Okay, hello everyone. This is your host, Anya Berg. Welcome to this week's episode. I am so excited. This week I'm going to be with, I have Noelle Silver here. I am so impressed. She is a friend of mine who has been working in the technology field for over 20 years. She has worked for companies like IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, and she is the founder and CEO of Artificial Intelligence Leadership Institute. She is an AI influencer, a keynote speaker, and the founder of Lovefluencer. And Noelle, welcome. Let me know if I forgot to mention anything. It's a really impressive list. I am so excited you took the time to be here with us today. Welcome.
Yes, I'm excited to be here too. I love it when, we've known each other for so very long and like our lives can come back kind of full circle and meet up again. So this is awesome. I'm so glad that you're doing this. I'm really excited to meet your community.
Yeah, thank you so much. My first question is, being in the technology field for so long, like how did you first get involved in artificial intelligence? And I don't think I mentioned it, but you were on the development team for Alexa Voice, right?
Yes, yes.
And I think that was around 2012, 2013, correct?
That's right. Yes.
So why did you first decide to work on voice? What an interesting choice back at the time in 2012, 2013.
Yes. Yes. As a matter of fact, I was at Amazon on my, journey into cloud. As most people, in technology, we've kind of been spending the last decade moving to cloud. I was a certified solutions architect on AWS. And Jeff Bezos sent a note out to the company and said, we're doing this cool new thing. Who wants to join this team? And I knew nothing about artificial intelligence, have zero classical training in this space whatsoever. However, I have a son who has Down syndrome. And I immediately was like, voice technology, that could be interesting. And I was very excited about joining this team. And like most of us, when we get a good idea like this, we're all excited. We go to our hiring manager and we're like, there's a new opportunity. And I don't know if this is true for everyone, but certainly for a lot of the underrepresented people that I mentor, we run into an interesting amount of friction with that manager who says, oh, like my manager, you're not really technical though. Like, even though I was, he just didn't know my history, but he's like, you're not technical enough for that job. I don't see you being successful there. And I do realize now in hindsight that his guidance was around like his life got harder when I left, obviously.
Oh,
Right? He had to hire someone else.
Yeah.
So it's not usually in our manager's best interest to see us leave and do other things. So I get why they would say things like that. But if we aren't self-aware enough, we might believe them. And if I did not say yes and go around him and talk to the hiring manager and ask and say, I will do anything to be on this team. I will work harder. I will I will tell the world about this technology. And that's exactly what I ended up being able to do. But I had to first go through that immediate resistance of, really, AI? You can't do that. You're not an AI person. And I was like, I'm going to become an AI person. So that's how my journey into AI really started, was by joining a team, a brand new team. I was employee 10 on that team. It ended up growing to thousands of people. Our product at the time had about 1,000 beta users. It's now over 100 million, right?
Oh,
so, right, like I never thought I would have an opportunity to be part of a project that was that big. But that being said, my AI journey, yeah, it catapulted on a product. Who knows? Alexa could have failed, right? And then who knows where I would be? But it didn't. It became a household name. And so now that led me to work at Microsoft, which led me to work actually at National Public Radio, which was a super amazing, fun role that I got to take, and then led me to IBM as an executive. And all of those roles, my goal has always been, how do we use AI to help more people, help my son, help my dad, help people who are not often represented in the typical audience of an AI product.
So good for you. And I mean, it's a perfect example how one decision in your life had
Yes,
so many positive consequences, right?
yes, yes. Thank goodness.
So can you share a skill that you worked on with
Oh,
Alexa?
sure. So I built over 100 skills as an
Oh, wow.
independent developer. Yep. And I have 5 of them that are very popular. But one of them, if you go to an Alexa device and you say, Alexa, open mindfulness, that is my skill. So it is
Mhm.
very, very popular. I have a couple million users, unique users of these skills that I've built. And I never thought of myself as like an app developer that had users. And all
Wow.
of a sudden, that's do it. I didn't have to build an application. None of my peers built that many applications, but I chose to build those applications for my family, and they ended up being very popular in the rest of the world.
Amazing. Were you able to monetize the skills you developed at all?
Kind of. So Amazon started a program called the Developer Rewards Program, and they pay me to keep these skills alive so that their platform has meaningful and rich experiences for their users. So I do get I get like a monthly payment from Amazon to keep my skills going and a monthly credit on AWS to host the skills. So it's kind of its own little business.
Yeah, a little side income, right?
Yes, yes.
I want to talk a little more about the field of AI. So
Sure.
obviously there's brilliant women like you in the field as like entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, but I
Yes.
read that there's only 22% of researchers are female in the field.
Yep.
Um, so how or why do you think diversity is important in the field of AI?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's unfortunate. I actually think we get a lot of people starting in the field, right, who go to school, who start the program, who begin a research career, and being an underrepresented voice in any industry, really, but specifically in technology and in research, it's like a constant effort, right, to be seen. And it's exhausting, right? So, just in the world when you have to constantly work
Mhm.
harder just
Harder,
to be
yeah.
seen, just
Mhm.
to like, so that somebody recognizes your work in any way. It's an exhausting effort. And I think over time, people just tire of having to do more work than their peers to just be seen as the same. I recently saw Lin-Manuel Miranda, who created Encanto, and Alexander Hamilton on Broadway. He wrote a quote that I was like, that's it entirely. He was like, underrepresented people, specifically immigrants, right? We know coming out of like high school that we will have to work twice as hard to be seen as the same. And that, knowing that, it's kind of unfair. And I think we are coming to a sense in society where they don't have to do that. They don't have to have a job where they have to work twice as hard to be seen as the same. They could start their own business, which is what I ended up doing, right? They could join forces with other women and start a company. They could become a venture capital, become an investor, invest in diverse organizations and inclusive engineering teams, as opposed to being a cog in a machine that's very difficult to change from within. So I think that's why that number struggles to grow, because people eventually just get fed up of that dynamic, of that societal bias constantly, forcing you to work harder. And it doesn't seem fair. I oftentimes, I have a daughter, and I oftentimes am like, I don't know that I would encourage you to go into a space where you have to work so hard and then still not be seen as the best. Even if you're the best, being the best just means you're barely making it as
Mhm.
a woman in tech.
So
And
frustrating.
that's
Yeah.
not a life that I want for my children.
Yeah. And if you look at AI, I mean, it's gonna change like all areas of our lives, right? So isn't it important to have all these parts of
Yes,
society represented in the research and the development, because it's going to affect
that's
all
right.
the
It's critical. It's
right.
critical. That's why I actually coined a term, inclusive engineering, as I was working. And it's now been proven that one of the things that leads to a successful AI project outcome is correlated directly to the level of inclusiveness you have on a team, right? The amount of perspectives. And we're not saying you need more women, though you should, of course, or more brown people, but really having a symphony of talent, right? People who have lots of different life experiences, right? To your point, like not just ethnic and gender, but people who think fast and think slow, introverts and extroverts, neurodivergent people, people who have families, who don't have families, who are caring for parents, who have dogs. Like all of these people represent a different perspective, but then you have to have a cultural leadership that allows those perspectives to be heard in the development process. Because many times we have a lot of diversity and a lot of inclusion at the table, but those voices don't ever get a chance to be heard. They're not asked to speak. They're not given an opportunity to share their ideas. Or if they are, they're immediately dismissed, right? So it's one thing to, that's why I'm a little worried about our inclusive diversity, DE&I efforts in big companies, because it looks like a good thing. But if you don't actually have a culture that supports their voice, that supports the way, the ideas that they have, they're going to leave, right? When I wouldn't want to stay somewhere where I say, hey, have we thought about kids with special needs? And if I'm not heard or if I'm dismissed, I'm not going to want to stay there. I'm going to want to find an environment or start my own company that can serve that audience that I care about. So I think that's the challenge most companies have today, is how do we create a leadership culture that inspires people to speak up and represent these different perspectives and these different features that we might want to release in a product.
Yeah, so it sounds like education is really needed about it for
Yes.
people to understand, right?
Yes.
And so in
AI
the end,
literacy.
AI is a tool, right? So people need to have the right values, right? Because
That's right.
right, it's
Yeah, ethics and really learning how to make responsible choices, right? Responsibility means asking better questions at the beginning, using critical thinking, skills we learned in upper education, in high school, in elementary, right? How do we think about what we're doing before we actually do it? Are we asking questions like not just what's the happy path of how someone might use this, but who could it maybe hurt incidentally, accidentally? Many times, I have a Google alert that I have called AI Gone Wrong, and it scours the internet every day for AI that was launched into production that did not have this lens of responsibility or ethics. They didn't think to ask constituents that ultimately were hurt. Recently, there was a finance company that launched a credit program leveraging AI to make credit decisions. And I and my husband applied. And I am the breadwinner, right? Or the person who makes the most income in our family. And the algorithm gave my husband more credit than me.
Oh, no way.
And I could not, I was like, wait, what did you get?
This is 2022. Wow. Yeah.
Right? Like I was like, why would I get less credit? Like everything about my credit profile is more positive. That doesn't make sense. And so it just led me to realize though, that chances are they trained it on a bunch of data that indicated that gender was a variable worth looking at, and it shouldn't have been, right? So these are the questions to your point around like, how are we going to fix this? Right? We have to ask better questions when we're building this. We have to build a more inclusive team, because otherwise, in this case, when that went live, they hadn't tested it on that dynamic, on what if a woman makes more than the perceived data set of men in there, right? What happens when there's a different demographic or a different set of psychographics even about a person that changes the way that AI model should make a decision. A lot of companies never even ask the question. They're excited at the idea of having an AI automate processes, and they don't think about what it'll do to the people trying to use it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy world we live in.
Yeah. So you're an advocate for women in tech, and you are all about mindful leadership, right?
Yes.
So can you say, what do you see are the challenges that women unfortunately still face in the technology field?
Yes. One of the biggest things I learned, and actually most of the things that I learned through watching leaders that were either good or really bad, right? So a lot of the practices that I created this framework of mindful leadership around these concepts that I learned watching leaders who would yell at people when they didn't do what they were supposed to, right? Who would, like, if our numbers weren't where they were, if we missed a target, like the response was to yell at your employees. And I was like, okay, so that we're not doing that, right? That's not what mindful leaders do. And as an underrepresented voice, I realized how important it was for me to be very intentional in my approach. As you mentioned at the beginning, I kind of handcrafted the companies I chose to work at. And that was very intentional because of societal bias, right? I actually, in order to get the jobs that I want, I have to overly prove, right? Like, oh, you've worked at this and this and this and this.
Mhm.
Okay, then we can consider you. If I worked at anything less, my options would change because they would they would actually, even though I am the same, my experiences are similar, because I didn't hand pick and curate my path, the perception of my success would be different. And that, again, I don't find that my male colleagues in this industry suffer that same consequence. I see people getting picked up from no-name companies that are very small into big companies, but that's not true. When you look at the women being acquired or hired into big companies, if you look at them, they're all rock stars because they had to be rock stars to even get seen by the algorithm. And there's something wrong with that, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's something wrong with that.
Thankfully, there's women like you who are trying to actively change it, right?
That's
So
right. Or at
tell
least
us
bring
about-
awareness. Yeah.
Yes. So tell us about Lovefluencers.
Yes.
What is
I
this?
love this. Yeah, I ended up, I think it was a couple summers ago, I woke up one day and I'm on, I'm a producer of content. So I'm on Instagram and I'm looking at all of these people, especially in the entrepreneurial space. And they're talking about money and Rolexes and boats and jets and all of these things that they're giving the perception that that is what success is, right?
Mhm.
Success is having all these things. And sure, of course, I'm not turning away a jet if I get one, right? Like, sure. But I felt like there was a whole community of people that wanted to be influencers that didn't want to be about the money, didn't want to be about like rolling out, having a gun that shoots cash on an Instagram reel, like that there's some of us that actually care about authentic connection, that care about someone's mission, being mission driven, being getting the vision of what you want in the world to come true. And so when I woke up, I got this idea. I was looking at, of course, influencers, and I was like, you know what? I want people that are more empathetic, more focused on love than acquisition of stuff. Right. And so Lovefluencers was the name, but it was the first time in my entire life that I knew all the things needed to build a brand. So I acquired in the morning, I got the domain name. I built a website. I created an automated email sequence for people who joined. I created a 5-day challenge that you could take to learn how to become a Lovefluencer. Up until that point, I always knew to do one thing. I knew to build a website, but then what? I knew to create an email list, but then what? Right. And this was the first time I created an entire business in a single day. From the website acquisition to the automated email sequence to a challenge that drove traffic to a product, which ended up being a coaching program where people could learn from me how to become a Lovefluencer in the world. And I was like, this is how businesses can be born. You can do all the things.
Human. It's,
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. On a roll, 24 hours.
That's right. That's right. I make time.
It's so beautiful. I think this is what we need in the world.
Yes, more of them. And that authenticity, right? I use that word and we use it a lot in the influencer world, like how to be authentic and you should be authentic. But really what it comes down to, for me, my definition of like the reason Lovefluencers exist is that I think there's a whole bunch of us that want, like we have a vision for the world that we want. We have a vision for how we want to see the world be better and how we want, our children to be happier and our families to be happier and our work to be happier. And we've got this vision. And now the authenticity comes in. How does that vision turn into the words that you say every day and the things that you do every day, right? That congruence between, it's like mind, idea, expression, or mind, body, spirit, like all of them operating from the same core purpose in life. And so now, rather than me, I do talk about the technology a lot, but I almost always start with what is your purpose? Why are you doing what you do? Because it is that now you've got AI to help you do whatever you want to do. But if you don't have clarity in what you want to do with your life, with why you're here on this earth, you won't know, you won't be guided to what AI model to use to solve that problem for someone. Right. I
Amen. This
created,
is like, oh my God,
yeah,
listening to you, I'm having goosebumps. It's so beautiful. Yeah, you have it
yes.
figured
And
out.
that you're not alone, right? Like you think
Yeah.
that that's why I love that we're talking, because you think the same way, your audience thinks the same way. But oftentimes when we're by ourselves, we're like, we're the only one who thinks like this. But it's not true. We just haven't learned to leverage social media in the same way that those cash throwers have leveraged it. And
Mhm.
it's time for a change. Like we could do the same thing. We can acquire the same amount of customers. We can have the same amount of wealth, but we can do it from a place of compassion, of empathy, of congruence, right?
Right.
And I've seen it work. I've built now several businesses on this premise of being myself, of not, suiting up and changing who I am to be what I think my audience wants. Like I instead show up exactly as myself, and I let my audience opt into me. And I find the more authentic you are, the more true to your purpose and clear about your purpose you are, those people will show up. They will come to you. And there is a world where you don't have to like haggle people for a sale, where you don't have to like, sell, or, have these uncomfortable conversations where you're pressuring someone, calling them all the time. There's a world where customers come to you and they ask you to be their person. They
See, to
ask you,
hear this is so
yeah,
encouraging because we still
yes,
think it has to be the masculine
yes,
way, like
yes.
pushing and pulling and forcing.
Yes, yes. And it's not true. And now more than ever, because we can leverage these tools that these other industries have used of native advertising to target directly people who care, who listen to Brene Brown, who like Oprah, who are, into mindfulness and meditation, but also like to build a business. We can target them exactly and tell them, we're here, we can help you. Here's what I offer. And I think the difference with the way that I've gone to market in my companies that's made them so successful is that I'm always leading with, here's how I can help you. And if this isn't valuable to you, like, then okay, bye. Like, it's okay. You don't have, like, I'm not here for you. I'm here for the one person who wants to, like, one of my programs is teaching people to speak on stage, getting them public speaking experience. And like, people come to me and they're like, I want to speak on stage. I never haggle. I don't have to like have a high pressure sales call, right? They're coming to me. They opt in on a form. I never even talk to them until they've already said yes. And that world is possible. But to your point, a lot of people think it has to be the other way. I have to set up a funnel. I have to do discovery calls. I have to, beg people to do business with me. But if you're truly authentic and clear about what you offer the world, people will line up to do business with you.
Yeah, I truly believe in energy, like the energy you
Yes,
bring out
yes,
to the world that attracts the right
yes.
people back to
That's
you,
right.
right?
That's right.
So, um, how can people find you if they want to work with you, if they want to dig deeper and see what you're all about?
Absolutely. So the best thing to do is to find me on LinkedIn. So you can go to linkedin.com/in/Noelle AI, and connect with me. Don't just follow. I mean, you can follow if you just want to watch, but connect. Let's build a real connection. I often can't do one-on-ones with everyone who connects with me. I have tens of thousands of people. But I do want to start a conversation. And then I do often live Q&A sessions, live Ask Me Anything sessions, things like this, where people can just come and have, one, realize they're not alone, be in a community of people like me. Like I happen to be very passionate about getting on, getting in front of your audience and getting on podcasts and getting on stages. But there's so many of us that are doing good work, building very successful businesses to just our narrow little audience. I always talk to people about 1,000 True Fans. It was an article written by Kevin Kelly about 10 years ago. And it talks about a world where we as creators, people who are building value in the world, we only really need 1,000 True Fans to pay us $100, right? $100. And we have a six-figure business. That's it for the whole year, $100 for the whole year. And we have a six-figure business. So, but now think about it a little bit differently. For me, I shifted that and I said, well, what if I get 100 people that know, like, and trust me, that understand my value, understand what I could do for them. and I charge them $1,000 for my program, a coaching program, whatever it is, an event. Now I've again got a 6-figure business that can support me, but I'm doing what I love and I'm completely aligned. And I don't need, somebody told me I don't need a business's last name in order to do it. I've done that work. I've gone in, I've had IBM as my last name. I've had Amazon as my last name, but you don't need that today. You can just be yourself, and you can find 100 people who are willing to invest $1,000 in your ability to change their life. But in order for that to work, you have to be clear yourself on what value you bring to the world. And that's that Ikigai. I don't know if you're into that. This process, it's called Ikigai. It's like a diagram that it has you think about what you're good at, what you love to do, but also, right, how does the world need and who's going to pay for what you do, right? What is the combination of those things? And I love that exercise because lots of us are good at things. Lots of us love to do things, but there's this special thing, like me, it's speaking. There's a special part of us that is uniquely good, uniquely, love to do that thing, and the world's willing to pay you for it. And that's the magic, that's the magic component I look for in every person that I meet.
I love it. Oh my God, Noelle, thank you so much. I'm so happy you were able to join us today. I mean, I want to keep talking to you, so much value. I'm gonna, link your LinkedIn profile and everything so women can reach out. And again, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. This is amazing. And I'm so excited. I can't wait to follow all of your success.
All right. Thank you.